This episode of the All Automotive Podcast is brought to you by our friends at GeForce Automotive. GeForce Automotive is a certified service center through Auto Value. Want to make an appointment? Go to their website at www.geforceautomotive.net. Click on the banner that says Make an Appointment and make your appointment today. And now, the next episode of the All Automotive Podcast. All right, welcome back to another episode of your favorite All Automotive Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Clausen, and today we're talking about my trip to London. Yes, we went to London. It was a great trip. We were there for 7 days. And boy, what a difference in the automotive industry from the United States to over in the UK. We stayed right downtown London, and our hotel was within walking distance from a lot of places, specifically the Tube, which we did take, and I can tell you about that maybe later on in the show. But what I wanted to talk about was, man, what the difference in the cars from here to there, just significantly different. And, you know, like you all know, I've told you this before, I live in Michigan, so I'm in the heart of the American automakers' backyard, basically. So General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, okay. So, but you start looking at Chrysler now, and their half of their stuff is Stellantis. So the parent company for Chrysler now is a company called Stellantis, and they actually have a lot of vehicles, and under their umbrella is some French automakers. One of them specifically Citroën, which you cannot get one of those vehicles when in America, unfortunately, and they got some pretty cool cars. So if you get the opportunity and you want to peruse the internet and you want to go to their website, it's citroen.co.uk, and then you can look at their available models. And I ran into a few of these out and about when we went to all of our day trips that we took. So, and specifically one of the ones that we did run into was the model, the C5X. And it's a pretty cool vehicle. It's kind of reminds me of that Buick wagon that they've got now, the Regal wagon. But it's a two-part hybrid, or you can get it in a full electric unit as well. And then they have a couple other models which are pretty cool. They got an e-delivery vehicle, which is very important around there. If you're in a big inner city and you're using electric vehicles, or you're driving around a lot, you save a lot of money on fuel, but you're, obviously going to spend that on electricity. But they have like a little delivery vehicle, which is very similar to the Ford Transit, if you're familiar with the delivery vehicles. And they got some crossovers, look like Ford Escape, Mazda. Kind of looks like some of the Mazda crossovers to me. But again, this is under the umbrella of Stellantis, and I can read, from the Wikipedia page if you really want me to. So that's Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, which is Dodge, Jeep, Ram trucks, and Chrysler vehicles, obviously. And then Citroën, Fiat, because Fiat's part of Chrysler, Fiat Professional, Lancia, Maserati, I didn't know that either, and Opel, and Peugeot, another French automaker, which we've seen a lot of these. And again, another unfortunate situation with their car company is Peugeots are no longer made in America or no longer sold in America. But they had some pretty cool ones over there as well. And I was on their website too, and it's really cool. They've got most of their stuff is two-part hybrids. They have engines as well as the electric motors, which the engines will regenerate the battery that uses up energy when you come to a stop. The engine shuts off, and if the energy's there, it uses the electricity until it needs the gasoline engine to run. They're 2008, the 3008. These are crossover type vehicles, very similar to Ford Explorer, Chevrolet Traverse, those kind of size vehicles, but they look really cool. So another website that you want to go to is Peugeot.co.uk. So it's PEUGEOT.co.uk, because all the websites that are specific to the United Kingdom are .co.uk. So again, another American travesty that we don't have Peugeots in America. They're very cool looking, and I'm looking on their website, and I'm specifically looking at the 3008 model, and they've got some really cool things going on with this vehicle as far as how the display looks and how the shifter assembly works, and the, they're all into these larger touch screens, and a lot of vehicles are going to larger touch screens, which reminds me of basically having like an iPad in your car. So again, it's a nice vehicle if you get the opportunity to look up Peugeot. So what struck me as really strange over there, and I knew there would be some different vehicles, but this whole 7-day trip, I did not see but two. So the whole 7-day trip, I only saw two General Motors vehicles. One was a GMC Sierra, and the other one was an older Chevy truck that some guy had restored and was driving it around, and it was actually driving alongside the tour bus as we were downtown by the Parliament and by the Big Ben down there. So he come driving by, and that's literally the only two General Motors vehicles that I saw the entire 7 days. So the difference in between where I come from and what's over there was just a complete eye opener for me. And if you have the opportunity to get to London and experience that, I do recommend it. So again, getting back to my story as far as what the differences are, again, I only saw two General Motors vehicles. So as far as the Ford vehicles, I did see a couple, and they were pretty much like the Ford C-Max. And the other one I saw, and we took a day trip to Oxford University, and we drove around that town or got to that town. We were on a tour bus, so we did a lot of walking, and we walked through all the 6 colleges that make up Oxford University. And we got to a courtyard in one of the places in Oxford University, and they happened to be shooting a show that's popular in the UK that our tour guide really knew what that was. And over on the side, I think this was a prop, because we saw a old Ford Cortana GXL, and it was a 2-door. It was a right-hand drive. It was a really cool-looking vehicle. And I want to say it was like a 68. And this was really cool. And I took a bunch of pictures of this. And if I get the opportunity, I will post them up on my Facebook page and or on Instagram if you follow me on that as well. So, and I'll give you those links to my social media sites at the end of the podcast. But yeah, that was a really cool vehicle. And again, for as far as American made or American cars like Ford, GM, and Chrysler, I'll use Chrysler has always been an American vehicle, but now it's under a huge umbrella that's got, several different brands and models and so forth. So the other Ford that we saw was the famous 1962 Ford Anglia. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, you know what this vehicle is. This vehicle was the vehicle that was in the opening scene of the Chamber of Secrets, where Ron takes the enchanted claw to rescue Harry from the Dursleys. And it was it was while we were at the Universal Studios where they actually made a lot of the Harry Potter movie, and there were a lot of props. So we actually took a tour of the Harry Potter thing over there. So that was really cool. But it was a prop. It was an actual car. There's actual ones out there. It's a 1962 Ford Anglia 105E, and it gets its popularity from the Chamber of Secrets. So again, not very many American cars, and I don't know if I really saw a Chrysler vehicle over there or a Dodge or anything like that per se. I'd say the majority of the vehicles that I saw were, German cars were really, really, really out there, popular. I believe Mercedes and Volkswagen were literally at the top of the list of how many different cars that I saw. I couldn't take pictures of all of them. But Mercedes and the German cars were very prominent. There was lots of those running around. So another car brand that I saw quite a few of was Renault. And as you know, Renault is partially owned or merged a little bit with Nissan, so they're getting help and funding from them. And they rebadged themselves or rebranded themselves in F1 as Alpine. So that's a new brand of the Renault group. So that's their F1 team is now Alpine. But the Renaults are pretty cool. I mean, they haven't been in the United States since 1992, and we all know what that one was. The Eagle Premier. So, and it was dropped by Chrysler, so that's when they left. So, and again, nowadays it's a shame that a lot of these companies aren't in America to bring their sophisticated automobiles to here as well. And what I seen a lot of was all of these manufacturers, and I've visited all their websites, and I did all this research before I started the podcast, and they all have electric hybrids, or they have full electric vehicles, which is great because they're saving not only the emissions but the fuel. And according to my calculations, they use the metric system over there, so I had to do some math. Their fuel was $1.99 a liter. So there's roughly 4 liters in a gallon, or a little bit less than 4 liters in a gallon. So do the math, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's $8 a gallon over there. So we thought we had it bad around $5, $6 in the America here. Over in the United States, it's a little bit difficult over there to keep your car moving if you don't have some sort of alternative way to lessen that expense or keep your vehicle running. So again, getting back to the Renault, there was several of them. They got these cool SUVs. They have little cars. And what I mean by little cars, Ford Festiva or Ford Focus size cars, or the General Motors cars. I can kind of comparable them to would be the Captiva or the Buick Encore. The little SUVs. And they do have sedans, and they've got some really cool sport utility vehicles as well. But Renault, it's a shame that a lot of these companies, again, aren't in America so that we can go buy them, because I was really impressed with the Peugeots, to be quite honest with you. I thought that vehicle was really cool. So one of the things that struck me as kind of interesting as well over in London was the London Cab Company. And if you Google this, and you can come up, you'll look at these little black taxis. If you watch the BBC and you watch the shows that are on the BBC, they've got these little black taxis that run around. So the London Cab Company has partnered with a company in China, and they now have 2,500 all electric black cabs, and it's specific to them. And they have these taxi cabs, and we were waiting for the crosswalk. We were walking to dinner one night, and we were waiting for the crosswalk to allow us to walk across the street. And the black taxi was sitting there, and I'm just like, I'm trying to listen. I couldn't hear, and it's noisy in London already. So it was sitting there at the light, and we walked across and got to the other side, and then the light turned green for them, and it sounded like a golf cart. Ooh, the way it went. No tailpipes, no nothing. It's full electric. I didn't get a chance to hail one of those taxi cabs and actually talk to the taxi cab driver. I did want to, just to see how long the battery lasts before they've got to recharge it. But I thought that was really cool that they partnered with this company in China, and this company gave them, according to this article I read, 500 million pounds to invest in this, and they've saved 850,000 liters of fuel because of it. So if that doesn't make the supply go up so the price will come down, I don't know what will. And these taxis, the older ones, are running on gas as well, but the electric ones were just really cool and slick looking. And if you look it up, you can see what I'm talking about. They kind of fit the design, and they're very similar to what they looked like back in the day. And man, they're really cool. It looked like, I was trying to get a peek inside to see what the driver compartment looked like and what the instrument panel and so forth looked like for the driver. But I'm pretty sure it's pretty simple. It's just a taxi cab, and they didn't want to be too awful sophisticated with it to drag down the power. But I would imagine if I would guess at it, and I might be able to look this up and tell you on the next podcast or give you an update on my social media of how long that these babies last on a full charge. I would assume that they would go at least 4 hours in pretty tough traffic and driving around. And I would imagine that a company like this wouldn't be ignorant about what would happen if one of them dies in the middle of the street. What's the rescue procedure? And if that happens, is there a backup or some sort, or do they have remote charging places along the way? And there are several businesses out there that do have electronic charging ports alongside the road, and that's just it. They've got it there. They can stop, turn their light off, recharge it. They're off the clock for roughly an hour or so, and they're back on the road, not burning gas, burning electricity. So, and there are hundreds of these over there. I could not even keep up with them. I mean, there was more, just about as many as those black taxis, those taxi cabs that run around there, as there are double-decker red buses. And I've seen a lot of those too, and we did get an opportunity to ride on one of those on the top level, no less. So why would you go all the way to England to ride on the bottom? The double-decker bus was really cool, and that experience was rather neat too. So because we got on a double-decker bus after we got off the train the day we went to do the Harry Potter tour at the Universal Studios. We took the public transportation, which over there they call the tube, and that's really cool, and that's a awesome experience. If I've had any subway system in America, I've experienced Boston, I've experienced New York City, and I want to say that the English have this kind of figured out, because you go into the subway station or the tube, and you go down these massively steep escalator down to the bottom, and then you just look to see what train that runs through the station that you're at. And if you take that to another station, whether it's 2 or 3 to the west or 2 or 3 to the east, then you can pick up some of the tubes that go north and south. And they've got a map, and it looks pretty funky, if you will, but we were on the one. Our hotel was located within 2 blocks of one of the tube entrances, and this one went east and west. So the one night we were trying to get to the London Eye, and if that's something that you've not experienced, I do recommend that as well. So the London Eye is the big Ferris wheel that you see on the James Bond movies and some of the British shows that they show on the BBC. So anyway, we had 6:00 appointment, or we had bought tickets to ride it at 6:00 p.m. So we got back from our tour. We asked the concierge where to get the tube, and he told us. We went down there, and it's like, if you have Apple Pay on your phone, that is just perfect. And that's what he told us, is do you have your credit card stored on your phone, or Google Pay or Apple Pay? You can just click your button, and so that's how you pay. So you come up, and it's like a gate, and you don't put money in it. You double click your Apple, and I've got an Apple phone, so I double click it, and the door's open. You go in, and again, you go down this big old long escalator, and it's really steep. It was really kind of funny. You felt like you're falling forward. Anyway, that was really cool. We took the train 2 stops to the west, and then we got the train that went north and south, and we took that all the way to basically down to Parliament. And then we walked across the Thames River on the bridge across the Thames River, and then we went down alongside the Thames River, and it was just a complete party of restaurants and outside activities, and there was all kinds of things to do. And then there was a humongous line to get on the London Eye, and it's a huge Ferris wheel, and then this thing's coming around, they open the doors, and you get on it while it's moving. It was very intimidating at first, but you jump on, and then you're on, and it's like, is this the ride at Cedar Point? But anyway, that was a good experience. It takes you all the way to the top, and then somebody must have had a problem loading, or they had some person that was handicapped or something, so it stopped all the way at the top, and it was a little the cart's moving back and forth, and you're swinging, and you're 500 feet in the air over the Thames River. So got a lot of pictures, cool pictures from that. That was really cool. But the tube, they got that figured out as far as getting into it, paying for it. So you pay for it just like you would pay for a hot dog and a beer at the Detroit Tigers game. It's all touchless. You push the button on your phone, activate that, and away you go. So that was really cool, experiencing the tube. So another thing that I thought was really interesting while we were over in London was the enormous amount of taxi cabs that were floating around. And aside from the London Cab Company, which is, those world famous black taxis, and been in service since the, early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, those are all over the place. And those are now like, the more recent ones are diesel, and they seat 6 people, I believe. So this company called the London EV Company, which is under the wing of the Chinese automaker Geely, they got together and made a very similar looking black taxi, and it's really slick looking. I've seen a few of them on the streets, and I was up close to one while we were waiting for the crosswalk to change when we were going to dinner one night. And it's like it's fully electric. However, it has a 3-cylinder, 1.5 liter gas engine, or petrol, they call it over there, petrol engine, which is just a generator. It recharges the battery. So its intended range is 80 miles, fully EV, and then the rest of that is 320 miles boosted or recharged with that petrol or gas engine. So it's kind of really unique, and Geely owns Volvo, so a lot of the pieces and parts come from the Volvo, but it's very unique in how they made it. So they decided that since the average mile per hour in downtown London is between 8 and 15 miles an hour, that, the 80 miles that's a lot. I mean, if you're not going very far, and think about a taxi cab ride that you have, you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, so you don't go very far with them, or you don't have them take you very far because you don't want to spare the expense. So what they do, and this vehicle is very, very uniquely made. So they've got the battery that's under the driver's side, under the driver's floor area. And then in the back, it seats 6 people very comfortably with seats that fold down. It's also has the ability to take a person that's in a wheelchair, and then they can sit facing forward. It's got a panoramic roof, so if you happen to go by some of the landmarks and you're on a taxi cab ride from one place to the next, you can look out and see Big Ben without having to roll the window down and stick your head out the window. So it does have, the back door is what we used to call a suicide door, which meets at the center B pillar and opens up towards the rear of the vehicle. And it's really interesting how they incorporated the technology. It's got USB ports all over in the back, so that if, obviously we're all working on our cell phones more than we should. And, the battery lives on them aren't the greatest sometimes. And a lot of us find ourselves in the need of a charger, and what a better time to charge your phone and a taxi cab ride from Heathrow Airport. Now, these things can go that far. There's no doubt. They leave downtown London and they can drive themselves all the way to Heathrow Airport and back, and pick up people and drop them off and go sit somewhere for an hour while they're on their lunch and recharge the battery and go for another 80 miles. So now, mind you, this engine that's under this hood, the 3-cylinder 1.5 liter engine, all it is a generator. It's not hooked to the wheels at all. So all its purpose in life is just to be a generator, like the one that's on your travel trailer or in your camper or in your barn that you use when the electricity goes out at your house and you fire stuff up with this electronic gas powered generator. So that's really cool. And then all the motors and stuff, it's rear motored, and those have what's it got, a 120 kilowatt motor, which is decent for something like that, because it's got to carry some people around. And the driver functions, and it's got its own little tablet, and then you can Bluetooth to your phone. It's like any kind of luxury car that you would have in America that takes your telephone. You can use your telephone Bluetooth. You can also use the onboard GPS to punch in the location to start the fare, and away you go. And the driver can look at the GPS and not get himself lost. So, and I don't think a lot of those cab drivers would get themselves lost. However, it's there if need be. And then it does have regenerative braking. So what happens there is they can set it to 3 different modes. 0 is no braking. When they let off the accelerator, it coasts. Or they can set it to medium or full or lot. So when you let off, the electric motor will slow the vehicle down so that you don't have to hit the brakes. And it also regenerates power for the battery. So which is kind of cool. So they've thought of a lot of different things, and the idea is that they head out in the morning for their morning excursions, and they run the vehicle that 80 miles or so on the fully EV, and then that engine has to kick in and run. But the cost savings for them, and because it's a big deal in London, they're focused on it quite a bit. And I thought they were really focused on reducing emissions more so than they are in the United States. And maybe we are close to them, but they're in nowhere near what England is doing as in regards to the CO2 emissions, the nitrous oxide emissions, NOx, NOx. That's the chemical that comes out of the tailpipe that creates the smog, if you will, like you see in LA and some of the bigger cities that have that issue. So according to this article I read, they reduced the NOx emissions 99% by having this vehicle with the EV ability. Now, it's not completely EV, so it does emit, carbon monoxide and dioxide and nitrous oxide, but with the engine being efficient as far as the emissions are concerned, that's reduced, like it's in the 90s. That's crazy. That's crazy good for them. And, they're thinking about it, I think, in my opinion, a lot more than we are in America. And, we could learn a lot from their technology, all these other automotive manufacturer technologies in regards to the EV technology and the hybrid technology. I mean, we're learning and making leaps and bounds every day, and I don't necessarily think that the combustion engine is going away anytime soon. And I would hate to see that too, because it would be really difficult for you to, buy a fully electric vehicle like a Tesla and have it be conducive to your budget once they, if that comes down the line to where they outlaw the combustion gas engine. And they have in some parts of the world. You can't get a diesel engine in some places across the globe. I know I don't know specifically, but I know in Germany they have some pretty specific things with combustion engines as far as diesels or gas. I can't remember which it is, but again, getting back to the emission stuff, and this is 2,500 of these things running around London that can go 80 miles without having to turn an engine on. That's great. And then the driver, the intended thing is, and I guess I'll get back to that. They set out on their morning journey and they drive their 80 miles, and while they got their light out and they're on lunch, they start the engine and charge the battery up. They don't have to plug in anywhere. It's really cool how they thought this all out. And, and again, the vehicle's got all the safety features that any kind of luxury vehicle would have. It's got lane departure warning. It's got the braking, emergency braking if needed. So it's got all these bells and whistles that a normal vehicle would have. And it's a taxi. So it's pretty cool how they've really done their homework on this, and Geely and the London EV company has come up with these taxis, and they fit right in, and they're really cool looking. And I'd seen one really up close. It was parked on the side of the street as we walked by, and I kind of stopped. I don't know. The driver thought I was kind of nuts because I was taking a closer look at it, but it was really cool, and I'm kind of disappointed a little bit that we didn't get the opportunity to ride in one of those taxis, because anywhere we went when we were in London, we walked, and a lot of people walk, and a lot of people take public transportation to the tube, and that's an experience in itself too. So if you get the opportunity to, and you have the opportunity to go to England, I highly recommend that you take it. And if you're staying outside of London, I do highly recommend that you take a trip at least for a day and check out London. It's got so much to offer, and there's so many different things out there, and there's so many different people, and it's just to me, it was just literally a melting pot of people, Americans, all kinds of different people from France and Spain, and there was Indian people there. There was people there from Dubai, and it was just an awesome trip. And I can't, I could talk to you probably for another hour and a half on all the things that we saw. We went to see the Queen, and we went to Windsor Castle to see the Queen, and she didn't come out and greet us, but we saw the guards that aren't supposed to make a face when you're making a face at them. They got to stay pretty steady. And that's their job, and it's very serious, and they take it very seriously. And, we went to a town called Bath, and where the Roman baths are, and just the architecture of the buildings, and the trip we took to Oxford and Canterbury, and then we went to Shakespeare's birthplace, and we went through the home that he grew up in and lived in, and there's just so much. It's just dripping wet with history. If you're into that kind of thing and you want to see some sights and the rolling hills, and we did take a trip out to Stonehenge, that was really cool too. So again, great trip to London. Got a lot of different vehicles out there, that aren't sold in America, and then unfortunately that's something that's a reality, because they're, my guess is they're trying to maybe keep them out of America, and some of these companies have the bonds with the have bonds with other companies, and they're saying, well, we've already got Chrysler over here, so we don't need to bring over Citroen and Peugeot and Renault. We don't need to do that. We've got our niche around Europe, and we don't need to come over to America. America's, got all that they need. And again, some of those Peugeots, I be quite honest with you, some of those were very, very nice. And the German cars, again, it's similar to what you see here, but driver's side's on the right. So, and that was an interesting thing too. Didn't drive over there because, terrified to be on the wrong side of the road and drive around the corner and go to the right, and that would be not good. But the trip to London, just you can't say enough about the rich history and so forth that's going on there. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of All Automotive. I'm your host, Matt Clausen. And coming up in my next episode, we're talking to Bobby DeMille. She's the Executive Vice President at C-Tech. C-Tech is a leading global brand in the care and maintenance of vehicle batteries, trusted by 40 of the biggest and most prestigious vehicle manufacturers in the world. You'll hear our conversation and much more in our next episode. Again, thanks for listening to All Automotive.